Greetings all, Bleep Bloop Bloom here with a little 3-year check-in. We've been playing for 3 years. Things are going fantastic. We've planted a lot of seeds. But I think it's good to sum up where we've come from and how is it that we are doing as well as we are doing. I want to talk about counselor choices, where we've come from, what our plans are for the future. Same thing with tech paths. Same thing with planting things in outer space. Maybe talk a little bit about different options going forward, how you can modify what our plans are. I'm going to go with a honey badger strategy of messing with if the aliens come at us, try to screw with us, we're going to hit them as hard as we can. We're not going to go into outer space and seek out trouble, though. I mean, you could. We're not going to do that in this particular run. We're going to wait until we've got some really good techs before we go out and try to cleanse the solar system of the alien presence. So let's start by talking about counselors really quick. We started with 3 persuasion counselors and Ravindra to hop around and get us some microstates. We grabbed them because they had astronomy and we knew there were a lot of space science techs that we were going to be going after. Once we used our persuasion folks to up some loyalties, we fired them, replaced one of them with Brent here, just because he's got social science, and we know we need that a lot. Otherwise, they're not great, frankly, but, you know, we need social science. As well as Alum, who led the charge for hostile takeovers. Obviously, almost anybody we have in our council right now can do hostile takeovers, but we're going to need computer science, and they're giving us a nice bonus to it. And they're a bucket of CPs, as I like to say. Base 14 admin, I think it was base 13 when we grabbed them. That's just fantastic. One thing we don't have, and if you've played this a while, you might be a little bit surprised that it's working. We only have one investigation/espionage counselor. Often you want or need 2, or it's more efficient to have 2, because we went with all of the US and then all of China and a little bit of EU, and then we're going to unify the EU with war. We're not doing a whole lot of crackdown, purge, crackdown, purge, crackdown, purge. And so we've been able to get by with Izzy, especially because we were able to get the assassinate mission on her with research and analysis wing. And if that didn't work, we could have maybe found something else. The CIA, although pricey, was available. And so Izzy has been working hard. And it's not it would be nice to have a counselor with that was specializing in espionage. We don't need it for this particular build. If we were doing an EU start and we were trying to break into a whole bunch of spots, we would need it. And we might have to, instead of Brent, we might have to go for a high espionage. Now, I think that with our 6th counselor, once we unlock quantum encryption, we will probably grab a high espionage person. They'll be our espionage monkey and they can split duties with Izzy, but we have been okay right now with just having one person specialize in an investigation and then do espionage as necessary. That's not always the case, but for a build like this, for a run like this, you got to make some choices, and I think that this was a good choice to make. So we will, when we get our 6th counselor, we will probably go for an espionage person unless we find a fantastic scientist to go with. That would be the only reason that we would not go with an espionage person. All right, so that's counselors. Pretty straightforward. Oh, by the way, you can hire a new counselor, but probably when we get to quantum encryption, we'll talk about this when we get there, we're going to try to find somebody who has already leveled up a bunch, probably working for Humanity First, find their best spy, whatever, and turn them, fire them, and hire them. Usually they're spies, if you can find them and you can turn them, I mean, they don't have really high loyalty. So that's going to be our plan. We're going to try to turn and hire, and that's probably going to be a better way of getting somebody with some decent stats. All right, let's talk about tech. Tech-wise, we have done fantastic. We went with our techs to unlock orgs, arrival domestic politics, arrival economics, which the AI was very nice to finish like 80 or 90% of. This unlocked orgs, and obviously admin orgs allow us to increase our CP cap, and when we unlock these, well, the other factions also research the little faction tech, so they can hire more orgs, and then we steal them. As you saw, we did a whole lot of hostile takeovers to fill up our counselors in by the end of 2024 with as many orgs as all of them could carry. And so this kind of start I would generally recommend regardless of your strategy. Maybe you're doing a China first start, or an East Asia start, or an EU start. One of my favorite starts, and I will probably do this when things officially get released, is something that I call the Tropic of Cancer start, where you can't take any country whose capital is above the Tropic of Cancer. That rules out China. It rules out the EU. It rules out the US. It rules out Japan. You end up having to work pretty much at the equator. It rules out India. And so you've got to work on a lot of, not quite around the equator and below countries, and those frankly just aren't as good. It's a very challenging run. It was a lot of fun to do. Even with that run though, even with that start, I'm using the same strategy. I am investigating, I'm pretty much going the exact same order almost with regard to techs. I am unlocking orgs, and then I'm going probing Mars, and then I'm landing, investigating space science, going on the moon, making sure I rush nuclear freighters, planting 6 sites on Mars. What we've done here in the first 3 years, you might tweak things a little bit depending on how much science you're generating, but the general path we have taken is the path that you probably want to take in any game of Terra Invicta that you play. Now, if you're doing some hard challenge run where it's like, no, I'm going to start with only Africa and the Middle East, and I've done runs like that, you're going to be a year or two behind in science. There's just no way around it. And so maybe you put off trying to plant on the moon until you've got enough boost to actually get somewhere. Same thing with Mars. But in general, this strategy of unlock orgs, steal them from the other factions, make sure you've got enough boost, make sure you've got an FMC, get to space as soon as possible, plant a few sites on Mars, and then break into LEO. As your total MC goes up, whether it's 2025, 2026, 2027, this is generally a good strategy. And we'll talk about how strategies can diverge. But early on, first 3 years, what we've done here is probably what you should do in most Terra Invicta games, even kind of like challenge runs, unless you're doing something super duper goofy. So something about, as far as how we've gotten, where we've come from tech-wise. Where are we going? Well, there's a few different tech paths. The one that I'm using right now is standard. In fact, it's so good that it got nerfed by evil lead dev JLump. Quantum computing to quantum encryption. Quantum computing gets us research campuses, and right click there, quantum encryption gets us, and there's another tech we're going to need before this now. Quantum encryption gets us the 6th counselor. And as you can imagine, a 6th counselor gives you a lot more CP cap, gives you a lot more orgs you can carry around. Obviously, research campuses are awesome to have with quantum computing. So this is a very common tech path to take early as soon as you get things into space, computing to encryption. With a little directed space research in there as well, so you can get your tier 2 research modules. So that is one of the key tech paths, probably the key tech path. Another thing, though, that we are going to want to do is the mission 2. The mission 2 techs are very important. And I think that one thing that separates the noobs from the good players from the noobs, is researching these techs long before you plan on actually going there. We are not doing a late Jupiter rush or anything like that. We're going to make sure this gets researched before the end of 2026. And that's because it's going to increase the amount of mining modules that we can have by 6. Soon thereafter, we're going to research mission to Saturn so we can increase that mining cap by another 6. And this used to be 50k, now it's 75. Thanks, JLump. Again, this is another 6, and this will allow us to put settlements in the Kuiper Belt. And there are a lot of really nice places in the Kuiper Belt, and it takes a long time for the aliens to get there to mess with you. So this is something we're going to be looking to do, settling the Kuiper Belt, sending out ships probably in 2029, 2030, and shutting off mines back home as the Kuiper Belt mines come online. So very important tech path that we're going to have to find room for. Another tech path that we are not going to worry about, because we are not doing it, is great nations. Now, for a space science run like we're doing now, which is most runs, you don't need to merge. You can do merges later. Great nations leading into the technologies that take you into PAC, the Pan-Asian Combine, Greater North America, and so on. Really the only unification techs that are really important, I think, are the East Asia ones. So Southeastern Asian Alliance, the Republic of China, and so on. These cost a lot. And we don't really need them early. We've got other priorities. But if we were doing a big China run, we would have to find room to squeeze these in somewhere. Maybe before encryption, but maybe not. Now the encryption takes a little bit longer. We're not going to worry about it in this run. We'll worry about this in some future run, but this is a tech path. Unity Movements is not the worst, I think, because it does unlock. And actually, does this unlock any CP techs? So we're going to, international relations is going to unlock some plus CP techs, like corridor diplomacy and common cause and crisis diplomacy. Those are nice, but we're not going to bother with great nations or unity movements until later in the game, at earliest. Finally, there is a tech path for weapons, obviously. We are going to want particle beams, so that's some good particle defense for our ships, and so we're going to pop into that. There's another tech along this line that's going to allow that. Carbon nanotubes, which I think we finished already, or it's going on right now. Gives us a nice cheap radiator, molten core, better molten core and nanotube armor, which is nice. These aren't really key, but we are going to want to be able to shoot down alien crap that they send at us to help preserve our ships. Not super important. We're not going to need it for another year or so, I would say. Again, we got a really good jump on the aliens, but it is another tech path. So right now we're going to focus on computing and encryption. We've already, when we start up the actual play, we're going to build a bunch of mirrors, and I probably should talk a little bit about one other thing as far as tech, what we've done. We are building nanofactories, and that is really important, I find, especially if you don't want to run spoils. So spoils has just been constantly nerfed in this game in early release to make it less powerful. Spoils ends up increasing inequality, decreases public opinion. Obviously, it hurts your environmental score, which is going to hurt things overall. Notice we don't care. We're still not investing in environment. We're planning on this game's going to be short enough that we're okay with increasing global warming in the short term. But spoils it's harsh. It gives you a lot of money, but it's harsh. And so you need welfare to counter it. Sometimes almost twice as many welfare pips as spoils. It's causing other problems. We would prefer not to have to spend a ton of money in the spoils. Because we would rather invest in boost and mission control. So I think a key tech to research relatively early is nanofactories. We're going to be planting one of those on each one of our sites. Pretty much every single site's going to have a nanofactory. Once nothing is being built on those sites, it's going to generate, each one generates 90 a month, although, it's going to cost some base metals, but that's fine. We're generating lots of base metals. And that is how we're going to get most of our cash, is nanofactories. That's going to be a little bit harder because universities and campuses, they have a lot of upkeep. There'll be some drama later on. We might be able to sell antimatter. We'll talk about that in the future. But in the short term, I just want to say, glad we researched nanofactories, because that's going to pay for everything that we need to have paid for probably through 2029, 2030 or so. Something about building, and if you've been following along, things have probably seemed a little bit haphazard. We've had some shortages, so we can't just build everything we want. And so I'm throwing a nanofactory here, an op center there, and so on. What's going on? Well, it's going to become very clear as we play, once things wrap up, what is on each site. Each asteroid site and each Mars site is going to have an op center. It's going to have a nano. It's going to have a farm. It's obviously going to have enough power. Then there's going to have 2 or 3 probably science buildings, and most will end up with a skunk works. I'm not building a skunk works now because they have a lot of upkeep and they cost some resources to build. But it's gears. It's gears which help give bonuses to all the faction projects, and there are some really awesome events that can occur that if they happens to hit a site that you own, you're only going to get the good thing if you've got a skunk works there and a science building. So on almost all of our sites, on pretty much every land site we have, early on at least, we're going to have a skunk works eventually, and we're going to have a science building, so that if the RNG gods are nice to us, we can get that cool event, which is going to give us like a mining boost or something along those lines, something that's really nice. As far as LEO goes, and for this run, because we're going to be spawning Mars, we're not going to do a whole lot in space, a whole lot around Earth other than LEO. Every LEO site is going to, well, across all of our LEO sites, we are going to have, most sites, they're all going to have an admin node for that +4 CP cap. They're all going to end up with a farm. They're all going to end up, most will end up with a skunk works. Most will end up with a research campus, and across all of them, we will make sure that we have the full interface bonuses for every single kind of tech. And that means, for instance, for social science, we're not going to be investing in government, so that really doesn't matter, but we're going to make sure that we have a 50% or higher social science bonus, because obviously that's good. For welfare, we're going to make sure that we have that full 30% welfare bonus from life sciences and a 50% life science bonus. When you have all of LEO, you can easily do this. You can spread out your modules, and even though everybody's got a skunk works and everybody's got a nanofactory and everybody's got an admin node, you can find enough room to have a campus and a farm and a couple of science modules spread out across these. And so in the end, once we get enough resources to do it, we'll see. It'll be busy work. Some of the stuff I might end up saving up and just kind of doing it offline, but we will end up with all of our LEOs across all of them having all the interface bonuses across all 8 science types, and a 50% or higher bonus for all those science types. And again, so that covers it. LEO will probably also build a shipyard in medium Earth orbit, maybe another one in synchronous Earth orbit, just because LEO is busy doing science modules. And that's really what space is going to look like. We're going to have a lot of asteroid sites, and eventually, as you know, because it's been advertised that way, we're going to do a Mars Dyson sphere. And then we're going to start that up probably in 2027 or so, maybe late 2026, we're going to see. And so what is a Mars Dyson sphere? I'm assuming you know because you decided to subscribe to this or watch it. But if not, well, let me tell you. So a Mars Dyson sphere takes advantage of the solar mirrors that we're going to be building very, very, very soon. Instead of fission reactor arrays, we are going to have solar arrays that in the end, one solar array is going to generate 600 or so power. One solar array. It might be 2 at first, but in the end, one solar array is going to be enough to power every single module on a Tier 2 Mars base, even if it's running a bunch of campuses and other sorts of buildings and an ops center. And that's just nice, right? So that means that we're not going to be, upkeep on the fission reactor array here is $6 plus 2 water plus 1 volatile plus 2 thistles, and farms aren't going to help with that. That's built into the array. Well, solar arrays are going to be a lot cheaper than that. that, and we're only going to need one of them instead of 2 or 3 or 4 fission arrays. And so that is going to be our strategy. We're going to take all 25 Mars sites, build a bunch of nanofactories on 2 or 3 of them, build a bunch of research campuses on the rest, and we are going to generate an obnoxious amount of science. And eventually, once we've built up enough cash and enough resources, we are going to upgrade all of those to tier 3 and have a ton of universities and generate, probably with the ledger science in that case is again, that's without diversity bonuses, is probably going to be 20-25k, something along those lines. It's going to be costly resource wise, yes, and pure money wise, yes, but hey, we're going to do it. That's going to be the run. And when we see that, once we're running that, and we're also still generating tons of resources on top of that, we're netting tons of resources, we'll build a bunch of ships, go kick some alien ass, and so on. Frankly, the least fun part of the game, actually building ships and killing aliens, I really like building up, having these numbers go up over the first 10 years, frankly, that's the Terra Invicta turn on for me. So I want to end with briefly talking about what you could do if you didn't want to do this. Now, I really insist that if you're playing Terra Invicta, you don't have to start with a US start, right? But you really should follow the tech path that I've outlined here. And this is not novel to me. If you've been on the Discord, I mean, this is pretty common advice. Rocketry, domestic politics, probe Mars, build up space refining, plant on the moon only when you can actually start mining it, unlock nuclear freighters, look at those asteroids, spam the asteroid sites, and Bob's your uncle. However, once that's done, once you're generating a bunch of stuff from Mars and soon asteroids, and you've got a lot of mission control, you could do different things. One common strategy is to investigate helicon or grid ships and send a whole lot of missile escorts to Jupiter. Now you can try to Jupiter rush, where you get to Jupiter first or around the same time as the aliens and squat there and take Jupiter sites and try to fight them off, although it's tough because they got to Callisto very, very early. Well, you can see the aliens are not doing fantastic total number of ships wise. They got 27, and they're still planting a lot of bases, as they should. That's what I would do. Well, it's 2025. We're generating enough resources that, and we have a lot of asteroids that are going to be coming online in the next year. We could build a huge fleet and send it to Jupiter in early 2027. Probably take 40 weeks or so to get there, but I guarantee the aliens would not be able to deal with 10 or 20 missile monitors with a little bit of point defense. We could easily take over Jupiter, take over Callisto, blow up their station, which is pretty weak right now. It's not going to be super strong in a year and a half from now. Take Callisto sites, and then expand as we want. That's something you can do. You can also go after, Ceres. Same thing. Even if we don't want to go to Jupiter, we could build some ships in 2027 and go take Ceres back. I mean, I might do that. That's possible. Or you can just build up a good Earth defense fleet, build up a good Mars defense fleet, take care of any invaders, build up until you've got some really advanced coil gun and laser ships in 2032. Use those to defend as the aliens are finally building some decent ships, but you're ahead of them, and then just start cleansing the solar system with really advanced ships. I think that's probably what we're going to do, but that is a different route. Another route to take is the route that we've talked about a little bit before, going with China. Now, we went US into China. One thing you can do is you can take the US, spoil it, abandon it, move into China, and stack a lot of knowledge orgs, increase the education level here of China, go with those merger techs, eat up Southeast Asia, Indonesia, South Korea, Japan eventually, and so on and so forth, and generate an obnoxious amount of science from China, something that frankly is comparable to what we're going to end up with the Dyson sphere. We're going to be a little bit faster, but we're going to be using a lot of resources. This strategy is a little bit more complicated. It's busier. I think that it's actually a little bit more fun, and that's something we might do in the future. But that is another option. Is instead of doing what we're doing with the Dyson sphere, you could, and frankly, you can do both. You can do the Mars Dyson sphere as well as pumping up here. If we were going with a China strategy, I'll tell you one thing that would be different. We've got 0 knowledge orgs right now on our counselors. We would be grabbing every single knowledge org we can find and throwing it on them. And we'd have to figure out what else to sacrifice. Maybe some MC because we'd need less MC because we'd be spamming space a little bit less. I don't know. All right, so covered, I think this is a good place to stop. So obviously after 3 years, we're doing awesome. We are generating with diversity bonuses 3.2K a month. Not so bad. We're at 86 out of 89 MC, and we're going to have a bunch of op centers coming online in the next half year. That's going to increase that by 28. Our asteroid sites are going to be coming online. We'll build op centers on those when they come online to increase MC even more. And we're going to be taking over the EU in the next year and a half, and that's going to give us even more MC. And we're going to use all that tasty MC to support research campuses, which give a lot of science. They're expensive to upkeep. One of the upkeeps is 1 mission control each, but between money from nanofactories and MC from all the countries that we've taken over, we're going to be able to support it. And I guarantee you that by the end of 2027, good old Mars. Can't guarantee you that every campus will be online, but I can guarantee you. Oh Lord, have they not even planted yet? Oh man, AI, wake up for Pete's sake. Jeez, that's embarrassing. I can guarantee you we will have every single one of these sites by the end of 2027 and be well on our way to our Mars Dyson sphere generating an obnoxious amount of science. All right. Well, I'm going to end it there, and when we begin, next sesh, we will build a bunch of solar mirrors, build nanofactories where they're not as our volatiles roll in, and enter 2026. And I will see you then.